Do you know, it's so good to be back at my home church, away from home church. It's been a long time coming. And especially to be in this building. How cool is this? So good. If you'd been near that nurse in that corridor that time, you'd have heard what she said. 3 days before I got nicked in town, it was a Friday, so no bail till Monday. I always got nicked on a Friday. I was an addict. So you can imagine by the time I got bail, I wasn't feeling well. Ow, my back's aching. Ouch, my legs are killing me. Man, I need to get some drugs, sharpish, to get straight. I had 25 quid to my name. I'd put this in my Ben Sherman shirt pocket that was underneath my jumper. Back then, this would get you a weighed 1/4 gram of heroin. So I walked into Hume and I went round to Ratty's, one of the dealers, to score. If you spotted Ratty in Tesco, you couldn't stop yourself from looking twice. At least twice. He had a cross tattooed between his eyes and he looked like Gandalf with a shell suit on. Ratty, it's Barry. He opened the door. Come in, Baz. Mate, if you get any gear, how much do you want? 1/4. I have, but I've not got that much. I've only got about 1/8. I'm waiting for some coming. You can have that if you want, though. It's really strong. Okay, then, I'll have that. So I got the gear off him, went into his bedroom and took it, and then everything went black. Then when I opened my eyes, everything was all blur, and I was dead dizzy. Then as I came round, I realised that I was laid on my back on a bed, and I was being rushed down a hospital corridor. The lights on the ceiling were bolting past me. Then that nurse's face appeared, looking down at me. She had blue eyes and red lipstick on. She looked dead worried. Barry, you came in here hours ago. You were DOA. The paramedics found you in a phone box, dead. Do you know what I did when that bed stopped? I signed myself out. Then I went back to Ratty's to get the rest of my gear. How crazy is that? But this is where I'd found myself, right in the middle of this struggle. What's been your struggle? It might look like that. But I know for most of you, it doesn't. Because you've been down another pathway. So that's where you've had yours. But we've all found ourselves in the middle of a struggle somewhere along the line, though, haven't we? Yeah. So what can we learn from that place? Let's pay a visit and take a look. For starters, the middle of a struggle can be the foreshadow to your trade. Do you like to watch films? I know I do. Especially on Saturdays when we were locked down. Good old Netflix, eh? Even if you don't, I'm sure you've seen at least one James Bond film. Come on, confession time. There's always a scene where James Bond meets Q to get his gadgets, isn't there? Then later in the film, you get to see him use them, usually in the best bits. This is what storytellers of all kinds, not just filmmakers, call foreshadowing. Something goes in there for a moment, then it's brought back later on. It's done with objects, characters, lines of dialogue. And this is like how it can be with us, because sometimes the experience we gain from the struggles we go through can end up being used later on our journeys. So the middle of a struggle can be the foreshadow to your trade. Kevin's Scottish, he's proper chirpy, with a scar on his left cheek. I can't really tell you what town he's from, just in case you're from Falkirk. Kev was into drugs and gambling until God got busy. He came up to me once after I finished speaking at Victory Outreach in Manchester. He works there. He was carrying a checkbook. Remember them? If you'd been at the back near that table with my books on, you'd have heard us. Barry, we want to make a donation out to the work that you're doing. Who do we make a check out to? Nice one, Kev. Make it out to Proclaim Trust. Anyway, why are you doing that? Are you the treasurer here? Well, kind of. I'm the accountant. Kev, have you always been into numbers, mate? No, not really. I learnt about them in the bookies. See, the middle of a struggle can be the foreshadow to your trade. Paul killed Christians. He ended up teaching them. Speaking from his own experience, he said, for we know that God causes all things to work together for good for those that know him. Think about your struggle and everything that's taken you through. Listen. 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 That struggle for you could be your greatest asset. Because God can take the experience that you gain from it and he can use it later on your journey. See, the middle of a struggle can be the foreshadow to your trade. In that corridor that time, the worried looking nurse was looking down at me. Barry, you were DOA. The paramedics found you in a phone box, dead. The middle of a struggle can be the foreshadow to your trade. And apart from that, the middle of a struggle doesn't have to be a permanent location. If you're in the room, raise your hand if you remember cassette tapes. For those of you who've not raised your hand, a cassette tape is what we stored music on before Spotify. Do you know, not long back, I found some house music and techno ones. Ones that I'd recorded in my flat in Moss Side when I had my little studio set up. If you'd have popped round for a visit, you'd have seen the mixer, the drum machine and that synth, and you'd have seen that Roland TB303. That's what makes the acid sound in acid house and acid techno music. Some of you know that. Wacka wow, squidgy sound. It was a decent setup, and I'd sit there for weeks, mesmerised, twiddling knobs. I looked like a mad music professor, in a trance, speeding off my head. So you can see why I was proper chuffed when I found these tapes. No way. Look what I found. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a tape to MP3 converter and have a listen. One of them is called Up Tempo. You can't really call it a mixtape because it's just one long track. Man, you should hear it bombing it along. Some of you know that electronic dance tracks have structures with intros, build-ups, breaks, and outros. Well, this one doesn't have any structure. It's just one long continuous drum machine beat with random manic breaks kicking off, lasting ages, synced up to that synthesizer and that Roland TB303, 45 minutes long. The whole side of a cassette tape, non-stop. Sounds like an hyperactive robot playing around with an Hoover and dentist drill. Thing is, when I recorded it, I must have thought it sounded really good. Otherwise, I wouldn't have kept the tape. Can you imagine what the hundreds of others that I recorded sounded like? The ones that I didn't keep. This is where I was at. But I'm not in the same place now, though, because God got busy. See, the middle of a struggle doesn't have to be a permanent location. David in the Bible, he often found himself in the middle of some sort of struggle, but he knew how to get through them. He said that God is my shelter and strength and always ready to help in times of trouble. Are you in the middle of something? Are you in that place right now? Listen, you don't need to stay there because God is ready to help. He can get busy in your situation, but you need to give him consent. Listen, the middle of a struggle doesn't have to be a permanent location. In that corridor that time, the worried looking nurse was looking down at me. Barry, you were DOA. The paramedics found you in a phone box dead. The middle of a struggle can be the foreshadow to your trade. The middle of a struggle doesn't have to be a permanent location, and the middle of a struggle is a place where the unexpected can happen. If you met Jamie, you probably recognise him from Crime Watch's Most Wanted. He's the kind of guy that would never, ever hit a man with glasses, but he would hit him with a baseball bat. I first met him when he was doing a 4-year prison sentence. One time I was speaking at this community event and he was there, so I sat at the same table as him. Good to see you, mate. Good to see you, Baz. When did you get out? I got out about 3 months ago. Got me parole, didn't I? Sorted. How have you been doing anyway? I've been doing really good, thanks, Baz. Feel like I finally started sorting my life out. Nice one. How did that come about? It was in that chapel that time. Do you know when I met you? You didn't know it, but at the start, I was only there thinking I was going to be buying some drugs from one of the lads on another wing. I wasn't there to listen to you. Thank you very much. But I think the big man upstairs has something else in store. Because then you said something that resonated with me. And it was that set me off on this path, Baz. It was mental. It just came right out of the blue. See, the middle of a struggle is a place where the unexpected can happen. Isaiah from Bible times says that God's thoughts are not our thoughts, and God's ways are not our ways. You see, God sometimes actions the unexpected. And he often does it when we're in the middle of a struggle. What about you? What was you thinking at the start of this? Have I said something that has resonated with you? Listen, it could be that God's got something lined up for you that's out of the blue. Same as Jamie. Who knows? See, the middle of a struggle is a place where the unexpected can happen. In that corridor that time, the worried looking nurse was looking down at me. Barry, you were DOA. The paramedics found you in a phone box dead. The middle of a struggle can be the foreshadow to your trade. The middle of a struggle doesn't have to be a permanent location. The middle of a struggle is a place where the unexpected can happen. And to top those off, the middle of a struggle is a place where you can start to rewrite your headlines. You should have seen Lisa's face when I told her what had happened. Lisa had long blonde hair and blue eyes, and she had her nose pierced. That was before body piercing was popular. We were together for a decade. A mad one at that. The last pad that we had together before we split up was on a council estate called Darnhill. Our offices are just a few minutes away, so I still drive through the estate. Once I was driving up the bottom road and there was someone on the other side walking up the path. Do you know, from behind, that looks like Lisa's walk. That is Lisa. So I pulled the car up dead slow towards the curb behind her and opened my window. Lisa, is that you, Barry? Yeah, love. Well, blankety blank, blankety blank, blankety blank. Blankety blank, 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 blank. Fancy seeing you. How long's it been now? Must be going on 15 years. Yeah, something like that. I knew you'd come back though, Baz. Do you want to come round to mine for a brew? Okay then, get in. She gets in. Just drive up here, Barry. I live down that cul-de-sac now. Do you know at the end near the bus stop? You should have seen her when we got to a street. She was on a mission. It's great living down here, Barry. You can get your cannabis from the house there. You get your amphetamines from this house over here. You can get heroin from them flats just down there. She was like a drugs tour guide on crack because she thought I'd come back. Her flat was on the first floor in this little block. If you've been there, you'd have seen her show me round. Here's the kitchen, Barry, that the council's just done up for me. Look at them brand new kitchen worktops. Here's the bathroom. Look at that new pot purple toilet seat I've just bought. Here's the bedroom, Barry. I said, here's the bedroom, Barry. Here's the living room. Sit down, Baz. We got chatting about old times. She starts to make a spliff, a cigarette with cannabis in it. Do you remember when I used to come and visit you in prison? Do you remember when I started to hear those voices? Do you remember when we lived in that squat in Moss Side opposite the Russell Club that had a tree trunk in the living room? And do you remember when you did that snatch that time? Allegedly. That Christmas when we were skint and you came back with that leather knife safe bag and you got all the knives out of the kitchen drawer and you were trying to open it and you kept breaking them. And then when you opened it, we saw all that money. What a Christmas that was. Then she lit the spliff. Like a bunch of skunks, she started a spray fight. We carried on with our trip down memory lane. Then she goes, yeah, Baz. No, you're all right, love, I don't smoke anymore. What do you mean you don't smoke? No, I don't even smoke cigs. What do you mean? I stopped when I become a Christian. What, you a blankety blank, 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 blank? Christian? Blankety blank, blank, blank. Yeah. How did that happen? It wasn't long after we split, Lise. I met a guy who invited me to church. And I went. And it was like a light bulb came on. And then the voices went. I came off the drugs. I went to Bible college. I set up a charity. I've wrote a book that's a bestseller. In it. You're waiting for that, weren't you? I got married. It's just been one thing after another, Lise, but it all started that day. That look on her face when I told her was priceless. Who'd have thought? You doing that? You're in such a bad place. Good on you. Are you sure you don't want some of this though, Baz? See, the middle of a struggle is a place where you can start to rewrite your headlines. Do you need to start rewriting yours? Do you want to? Listen, 2,000 years ago, 2,000 miles away, God, the creator of this universe, God who flung the stars into space, God became a man. His name is Jesus. Jesus is God with skin on. And he came to this earth and he was tempted just like you, but he resisted temptation. And at the age of 33, he allowed himself to be nailed to a cross. He found himself in the middle of a struggle. He died on that cross to pay the price for your faults, for your flaws, and for your failures. And he died on that cross to give you the option to start rewriting your headlines. That guy in the Bible, David, he said this as well. God rewrote the text of my life when I opened the door of my heart to him. Listen, when you give God consent to come in, he gets busy. He gets his pen out and he starts to rewrite your headlines. But you need to give him consent to come in. A mate of mine got his car broken into. Whoever did it used a device to relay this signal from his car key fob to another device that was used to open his door. It's a method that's been given the term relay theft. Have you heard of it? Interesting. Car thieves have come a long way since my day. I just used a brick. Do you know God will never try to get through your door using a device? In fact, he tells us his method in his instruction book, the Bible. He says, I stand at the door and knock. And if anybody hears me and opens the door, I will come in. You see, God is not a relay thief because he stands and he waits for you to open the door. He waits for you to give him consent to come in. And when you give him consent to come in, he gets busy. He gets his pen out and he starts to rewrite your headlines. See, the middle of a struggle is a place where you can start to rewrite your headlines. In that corridor that time, the worried-looking nurse was looking down at me. Barry, you were DOA. The paramedics found you in a phone box, dead. I didn't tell you how I ended up in that phone box, did I? Let's wrap this up now. Back at Ratty's flat. And find out. That night I'd signed myself out. And I went back to Ratty's to get my other eighth. Ratty, it's Barry. You should have seen how mad he was. When he opened the door, he was so angry. That cross between his eyes was spread across his face. What do you want, you bucket of bunk, 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 bunk? I've come to get the rest of my gear, Ratty. You cheeky bucket of bunk, 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 bunk. What do you mean? Well, when you came round here before, you didn't even have any money. I did, Ratty. No, you didn't. I did. It was here in my shirt pocket, underneath my jumper. Oh, side note. Remember earlier on, I said I had 25 quid to my name. I put this in my Ben Sherman shirt pocket, underneath my jumper. Now, I've pulled it out again. Foreshadowing. And this place where I was at reminds me that that was the foreshadow to my trade, like Kev's was for him. That wasn't in there before. It was, right? I'd put it in there earlier. No, it wasn't, because me and Junkie Jerry from upstairs searched you before we carried you down to the phone box and left you there after you'd OD'd. It was, right? He still didn't believe me. So I kept the 25 quid and I went somewhere else to score. The middle of a struggle. This was me in mine. And I know it's a place where we've all been. If you're in the room, please stand. If you're watching online, keep watching. If you're in the room, please stand. If you're watching online, keep watching. Listen up. Listen up. Right now, God is stood outside your life. Whether you're watching online or in the room, he stood outside your life. And he wants to come in. He wants to get busy in your situation. He's ready to get his pen out to start rewriting your headlines, but you need to give him consent. What are you going to do? I'm going to pray a prayer. Whether you're watching online or you're in the room, I'm going to pray a prayer. There are two groups of people who are going to pray this prayer with me. The first group, those people, you've never prayed a prayer, you've never given God consent to come in. It could be that you're attending this church, you've been coming for a while, but you've never given God consent to come in. It could be that you're part of the youth group and you come in because you like connecting with the young people, and that is brilliant. But you as an individual, you've never given God consent to come in. It could be that you've come with a friend or a partner, a loved one, and you're coming to please them. Great, thank you. But you have never given God consent to come in. Listen, right now, God is stood outside your life. He wants to come in, but he needs your consent. The first group of people, whether you're watching online or whether you're in the room, those people, you've never prayed a prayer, you've never given God consent to come in. You're going to pray this prayer. The second group of people are those people who are watching online and those people in the room. You have prayed a prayer at some point in the past. You've got going on your Christian journey, but for whatever reason, right now, for whatever reason, you're not cutting it. Listen, the Bible says there's no condemnation, you know. But what I want to say to the second group, pray this prayer and reconnect. And may this be a day in your diary when you've reconnected and then you've left this place and you just cracked on with the rest of your Christian journey. They're the two groups of people, whether you're watching online or whether in the room, is going to pray this prayer with me. And if you're in the room, you make up the third group. You're going to pray it to encourage the first group and the second group. Are we ready? All three groups, whether you're watching online or in the room, repeat after me, phrase by phrase. Dear God, I come to you today and I admit that I'm not perfect. God, I ask that you forgive me for my faults, for my flaws, and for my failures. God, I ask that you wipe my slate clean, because right now I'm opening my door and I'm giving you consent to come in. And God, I ask that you get busy in my situation and that you start to rewrite my headlines. While the heads are bowed, if you're watching online, keep watching. If you're in the room, you're part of the first group and the second group. Can you raise your hand as quickly as you can so I can see it? If you've prayed that prayer, you're part of the first group and the second group. Keep your hands raised. Keep your hands raised so I can see them. There's a lot of people in the room. Keep your hands raised. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Put your hands down. 11. If you're watching online, keep watching. I'm going to tell you what to do in a minute. There's 11 people, raise your hands, but there's more people in this room who's prayed that prayer for the first time or to reconnect. The 11 of you who've raised your hand, you don't need to raise them again, but there's more of you. I'm going to say to you, park your pride outside, because pride can stop you connecting with the living God, especially some of you blokes. I'm going to count down 10 seconds, and I'm going to ask the rest of you to raise your hand. If you've prayed that prayer, you're part of the first group and the second group, and you're in the room. Anybody else, as I count down 10, raise your hand. Keep your hands raised so I can see them. We've got another 1, another 2. Keep your hands raised. Another 3, another 4, another 5. Keep your hands raised. Keep going. Another 6, another 7. Anybody else, as I count down? Another 8, 9, 10, 11. Another 11. That's 22 altogether as I count down. 6. Another one over there. 23, 24. 25, 26, as I count down, 4, 3, anybody else? Another one there, 27. Anybody else? 28, 29, 30. Anybody else? You're part of the first group or the second group? 31. Anybody else as I count down? 2. Anybody else? 1. Brilliant, 32. If you're watching online, just put in the comment box, I prayed, and someone will be in touch with you. There's 32 people in the room. I'm going to count to 3 on the point of 3. You're all going to leave your seats. You're going to go to the back. Someone from the church is going to come and stand with you. We want to give you a book. I've brought a book to give you, a little book, and there's also some information we want to give you via a QR code. But it's important that you do this. So all 32 people who've raised their hand, you're going to leave your seats and you go to the back. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3. You go now to the back. You go now. All those people raise their hand. Let's give them a round of applause as they're leaving. You keep going. You keep going. You keep going. You keep going. Keep going to the back. Keep going to the back. Keep going to the back. Yes. Yes. You keep going. You keep going. If you raise your hand, keep going to the back. Go to the back.